Hello there folks, today we're going to take a look at the game called Dawn of Peacemakers. It's published by Snowdale Design and the designer is Sami Laakso. And in this game you are in this anthropomorphic world where there's war. And you're adventurers and you are asked to assist in bringing peace to this world. So let's take a look at how the game works. So Dawn of Peacemakers is a campaign game, but you can also play it as a skirmish game. But let's take a look at the campaign. Let's take a look at the very basics, the first scenario. I'm not gonna go further into that because then you can have few surprises and discover the game yourself. So this is the campaign booklet over here, and in this one you have all the scenarios and all the surprises and all the things you need for the game. I already have set up the game for the first scenario where we have two factions. We have the Macau faction and the Ocelot faction. So, and these two factions are not controlled by us, but these are the opposing armies that are fighting each other. And what you need to do, you need to get both of these armies' motivation down to 1 or 2, and then they will withdraw and you will bring peace upon the lands of whatever this world is. Yes. But for that you have your own adventurers, and with those adventurers you influence those different armies, influence their orders, how the units are defeated, and try to lower the motivation to 1 or 2 for both of these sides. And by the end of the turn, if both of these sides have motivation of 1 or 2, then they will withdraw and you have basically saved the world and brought the peace. Now, the armies themselves have those different units, and the units correspond to these figures over here. There are soldiers. This is, for example, the commander unit, and they have different stats over here, like the attack stat and the range and the defense and the health. And if the units are defeated, their motivation, their side, their army's motivation is lowered. So sometimes you want the unit to be defeated, but not too many of them, because if the motivation goes to 0 for any of the sides, then you have lost the scenario. And in the future scenario there might be some other conditions as well, but let's take a look only at the basic one. But how the adventurers, so us players, we are the adventurers, we are these figures, for example here. Let's take a look at this kind of a 2-player game. Each one of us gets 2 cards in his hand, his or her hand, and these are the resource cards. I'm going to show you 4 of these. These are the resource cards, and they have various symbols over here. They have the influence, the movement and fortification, also the special ability. So on your turn you can use as many of those cards as you have in your hand. By the end of the turn you will draw 2 cards in your hand, so if you will not use any of these you can draw 2 more cards, and then you have more cards for the next turn. And movement is very simple. You basically play the cards, and now you have 2 movement points. You can play more cards for movement points. So basically you kind of charge yourself up for movement, and you move through these different tiles. The adventurers can move through the armies, onto these army units over here, and so on. It doesn't really matter. The adventurers are basically influencing the armies, but they cannot be attacked by those armies by any means. Now, if the armies move, if the army miniatures move, they cannot move into the opposing armies figure over here. I'm gonna also talk about the different sides that we have on the board, but let it be for now. So the first phase is the adventurous phase, where you play those different cards. So the movement is very simple. The fortification, so the fortifications are these blue tokens that you have over here, and you put them out around yourself on your own spot where you are sitting, and these are basically +1 defense, which means that they will absorb 1 damage. For example, if I put 2 of these cubes over here, let's say I played this card, I got 2 cubes during my turn, and I now can put these fortification tokens around me. I put these 2 cubes over here, so if this soldier over here stays at that space, then he can absorb 2 damage. But sometimes they start moving, and that's a bad thing because the fortifications don't move with them. And you can never place fortifications on the river tiles as well. So that's that. The first one I didn't talk about, this is the influence. This is one of the most important ones. So the influence means that, for example, I'm gonna play let's say I had these two cards. I'm gonna play both these cards for the influence. Influence means that I'm gonna draw from the order decks of the faction that I'm befriending with. So basically befriending, but I mean like, if I'm staying near the blue, I get to draw cards from their deck. If I'm staying near the red, I get to draw cards from the red deck. I cannot get the cards from the red because I'm not staying on their side over there. I'm not staying with that red figure over there. So, and these order task employee cards are the orders the armies will execute in the army phase after the players have done their adventure phase. And all of these different order and task cards, let me show you. These are the ploy cards, and they say like regular, closing, swift, organizing, evasive, and so on. And then the task itself, where it has the strike, move, cover, and so on. And this corresponds to the exact figures, because you see the figures have those different bases, round bases and star bases and cogs bases and so on. And during the army phase, you will start drawing the cards, one card from the ploy, one card from the task, and for example there will be a swift strike or something like that. But during our turn, adventurous phase, we can influence, which means, for example, I can draw two cards from either of the decks. Let's say I want to see what would be the blue armies, and I can draw from the blue army. What can be the blue army's task for the next two turns? So I look at them and I'm like, all right. So there is a movement and there's the cover. Let's say that will be that way. And I'm like, I don't want that figure to move right now. So it can move next turn, not this turn. So I can put them back in any order. Let's say I'm gonna put cover on top. So you're trying to influence those decks so they will benefit you the most. And that's that. So also with the influence, you can ask for help from your friends. They don't have to be in the same spot as you. They don't have to influence the exact color. They can be anywhere, and you say, would you like to add some influence to me? And they use those same cards to add the influence. And that's really easy. They just, let's say they're gonna put up one card more, and let's say I really want to see what's the ploy coming, so we can maybe prepare. So because I had the first turn, you had the second turn, maybe then you can counter something, you know. And eventually you will look at these cards, you will rearrange them, and if both of you have done their turns, you will draw up to two cards. You will draw two more cards, I say, and then the army phase will begin. So the army phase is basically resolving those ploy task cards, the order cards. And for each faction, you will draw these cards, from one card from each deck. So for example, first of all, we're gonna take a look at the speed of those cards, the ploy cards. So for the blue, it's normal speed. For the red, it's also normal speed, which means that we are in the tie who resolves their order first, a blue or red army. And then we'll take a look at the other stuff over here, which is a move, cover, and strike. So the move happens before cover, and cover happens before strike, and so on. So at this moment, if both speeds are normal, but the move is before cover, then the red army will resolve there first. And it says, move units in a circular base grouped forward. And the units will move if they can get closer to the enemy unit. So for example, if this unit is right over here, this is the only circular unit for the red army, he will move forward because he can move closer to the enemy unit. The thing with those different shaped tiles and so on, for example, and the icons on them is, for example, this one is a shattered, which means that the units on this tile are -1 defense, basically. They can get more damage. Though the other are fortification tiles, which absorb 1 damage, and so on. And also there is a stealth. The stealth means that you can attack the unit only from the same spot or the adjacent spot. So the range doesn't really work. But let's say this unit moved over here, and then we will resolve the blue as well. Units in the circular group, these two, for example, they gain +2 defense for this round. So, and there's also strike. And how the strike works is basically, let's say if that would be the strike, then let's say the blue units strike the red units, the circular ones it says over here. So these two units have to fight the red units, and they will target the closest unit to them. And they have also the range, as you can see. The range is over here. Oh, this is not commander, these are the soldiers. Their attack force is 3, the range is 2. This unit can definitely kill that unit can definitely kill that unit. If you have to resolve the tiebreakers on who the units attack exactly, there is the attack prioritizing. I'm not going to talk about that too much. And basically, they deal 3 damage to those units. Say this unit deals 3 damage to that unit, and that unit doesn't have any defense, as you can see over here, which means that they will get 3 damage. But maybe I put those fortification tokens over here, I predicted that, and they will absorb 2 of the damage and only get 1 damage. And on the last bar over here, there's a health, and once the unit is defeated, their army's motivation is lowered by 1. And that's how the strike works. And there will be more task employee cards, like basically task cards, that you get into the game as you progress through the campaign. But let me show you what's, so move, strike and cover are really easy, but let me show you what you have in the ploy cards. In the ploy cards, for example, at the start of the army phase, cancel the task part of this order. Lower this side's moral by 1, which is really bad. The twin, each unit in this group has -1 damage until the end of this round. Resolve the order task again immediately after resolving it the first time, so you will resolve your task twice. Or that army. And the skirmish phase, only for the skirmish game. Just before this task, move each unit in this group forward 1 space. So there are some really interesting different things going on over there. And also the change of plans is that where you will... where's the change of plans? I didn't have it here, but it's here. Anyway, the change of plans is where you will shuffle the discard into the deck again, and that's really bad because, for example, you have prepared for the exact thing, but you didn't look at the top card of that task, and then the change of plans comes, and basically you will shuffle all the things, and it basically randomizes all the stuff. So that's that. And as I told you, the army phase goes through. You get some. The armies get some damage, maybe the motivation will be lowered, and then there will be the end phase where you take a look if both armies have the motivation in number 1 or number 2, or if there is a 0, you are defeated, so you didn't help the armies. But if there are 1 or 2 or both of them, you win the scenario and go to the next area. You get more cards and new surprises. But let's take a look at the cards as well. So those different cards, for example, this one over here, it doesn't really zoom. I'm sorry about that. Mixed group. So you can use those cards as special abilities as well. Choose one of your companion units. Companion means that you're standing next to. And it's on the same space as the army's unit. Replace the insignia of its army task card with a round, so you will kind of replace the bases, and that will differ when they activate. So for example, choose one of your undamaged companion units, give it 2 damage tokens, so you've poisoned the food for them, and you want them to be damaged so they can be killed later and so on, so you can lower the motivation and so on. So kind of influencing a lot those armies. Choose one of your companion units, look at 1 bottom card from its army's order deck, either place the card on top or the bottom, or Choose one of your companion units, discard a top card from an army's order deck. Choose one of your damaged companion units, remove 2 damage tokens from it, so you will heal. There are various of those different resource cards, and you get more of them as you progress through the campaign. And that's basically how you play Dawn of Peacemakers. So, components and artwork. First of all, the artwork is really nice. I'm not exactly keen on that kind of a style, but I still like it. It's very similar to kind of a Mice and Mystics vibe, but also because the sculpts, the small miniatures, are made by the same person who made Mice and Mystics sculpts. So this is a nice thing. I really like those sculpts, and I really like how these look as well. And all the components, the cards and the small miniatures and small bits and so on, are nice, colorful. The iconography is clean. The rulebook is nice. It's a campaign game, so you're gonna add rules as you go. So overall, I think the whole package, it was made through the Kickstarter. The whole package as a Kickstarter game was made with love and was definitely made with care and good perception, and nicely done. So I'll give components and artwork 5 out of 5. Now we go to the theme. Now I dig the anthropomorphic worlds and those animal folks and so on. I like that, and it comes through those components and art at some point. But let me explain. So in this game, you are adventurers, and you're going onto these battlefields, and you're trying to influence those different armies. It's kind of abstract because on the board itself, you are on that board, and the two armies are clashing, but they cannot attack you, but you're still kind of there. So if you visually look at that board, you feel like you're there, but you can get no harm. Like, they will not kill you or something like that, but they are clashing, and then you are intervening, and you are poisoning the food there as well, and so on, all those different cards that you're doing. So it kind of feels out of the theme. Why should I be there on the battlefield? I like the overall theme of bringing peace rather than just fighting each other again. There are so many games of territory control and war gaming and so on. But in this one also, if I would exchange this anthropomorphic world with the real world and just have two armies, and we're kind of adventurous, and we can basically come up with any fantasy theme over here, or just a real life, whatever, different post-apocalyptic world or something like that, or space and so on. Two armies clashing, and your adventurers trying to influence them. It doesn't really feel like you are those animal folk trying to do something, because, for example, in Mice and Mystics, you went through the dungeon, and you became mice, and you fight cockroaches, and you have to jump off the spoon to get on the table, and so on. It all felt very thematic. In this one, it's just a battlefield, and it could be anything. So the theme doesn't come through as much as I would have liked it to be. So the theme gets 3 out of 5. Now we go to the mechanics. This is the main thing over here. The mechanics are nice. I like how you play those cards for several reasons, for influence or fortifications or movements, and you spend those points. I like how the other players can aid you in your influence. I really like the army phase, where there are those orders that you reveal and see what happens, but you can prepare for them by influencing and by seeing what happens in advance. And for example, on my turn, I'll do that. On the other turn, that other player has much more information to deal with, and we're trying to cooperate. And I really like that. It's a niche. It's a niche to have the game of kind of a war, but trying to bring peace. It's kind of a weird, and I think some people might not dig that. They might not like that, because they go into that game seeing a huge pile of things, miniatures, animal folk, colorful things, looking at that, it's an adventure, you know, it's a campaign mode game anyway. So it's an adventure, and there will be some fighting probably. We're gonna go through those different landscapes and blah blah blah, do this and that and loot and so on. No, you are just put on those battlefields and you are influencing those battles. So it's kind of a very different game from what it seems to be. And I would have loved to have kind of a more adventure, because if you name us adventurers in this game, then I want to feel like an adventurer. But this game is a little bit too abstract of a like kind of a puzzle that you need to solve in order to bring the motivation to 1 or 2 for both armies, and then you win. Nice part is that it has rather clean rules, and you go through those different scenarios, and you add more rules, kind of more mini expansions and so on, so which is nice. It brings more to the mechanics as well. But yeah, it's a small caveat. So this game is a niche, and I'm sure that some people will love it, some people will hate it, and yeah, it's just about the expectations. So I give mechanics 4 out of 5. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention as well that I really like how the card play goes, but I would have loved to have more choices during my turn or during the game itself. It's kind of feels like I'm very restricted by the cards that I have, but I want to do more. So, but maybe that's where with more cards there would be kind of an adventure part of the game as well. That can be possibly an expansion, who knows. Anyway, yeah, mechanics 4 out of 5. So replayability, and replayability in this game is it's hard for me to tell about replayability, because this is a campaign mode game. So each time you go further, you unlock new things. Which it's a campaign, kind of a legacy, but it's really not. You're not really destroying any stuff, but you are eventually unlocking more cards. There are new troops coming, and so on. I'm gonna spoil that, and it feels like I would have maybe loved to have this kind of a ongoing adventure after the campaign mode, to have some kind of scenarios. But the problem is, because this game is about just influencing armies on the battlefield, there's no adventure itself, then probably that's why it wasn't there. But there's a skirmish mode, and I think this game still has a lot of replayability. If you go through the campaign, that's how the campaign games go, and eventually you can play the skirmish game later on. So I give replayability 5 out of 5. So let's go to scale. Now, this game can be played solo, this game can be played 2-player. I'm not keen on 3 or 4. And that's because the more players, the less cards you have, the less things you do on your turn, which it kind of feels like basically this game was designed like, so this is a solo game, but let's make it cooperative and add 3 more players, but it all stays the same. Like the core stays the same within all these different player counts, which means that if I'm alone, I'll do all of these things, and if there's 4 of us, we just divide those same things, and that's not as satisfying as it should be. So I like the 2-player game of that, because with 2 players, we at least kind of feel like there's one army and the second army, and we're kind of influencing each other army and kind of divide ourselves, and we have a small cooperation. I like cooperations. I'm not really a solo gamer, so 2-player, nice. Everything else, solo might be very nice as well, I don't know. But 3, 4, no, not for me. So I give scale 2 out of 5, and the total brings it to 19 out of 25, and it gets the bronze Würfel medal. And as I told you, you need to go into this game with certain expectations, because this is not a war game, this is not an adventure game, this is a niche game. But that's what makes it kind of a unique, and that's what makes it different from many other games. And it has nice components, nice art, and the overall mechanics are also really cool. I like all of that. it's not for everyone. So this is Dawn of Peacemakers. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those social media things, and we have the Verfulcast as well with Kyle. Go watch that. And we're doing the live Google Hangout sessions. And overall, just keep an eye on the channel, and we see you in yet another video. Bye bye. This channel is sponsored by Osprey Games. Check them out at ospreypublishing.com.